Joined in the studio by GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and former Lib Dem MP Luciana Berger.
Labour MP.
I was going to say, I was just going to say, you were Lib Dem for a little while.
Yeah.
Somebody got that off Wikipedia wrong.
Yeah.
You were Labour, and then you were temporarily with the Lib Dems, and you are now back in the Labour Party.
I am, yeah.
You left the Labour Party, Luciana, over the appalling anti-Semitism during Jeremy Corbyn's leadership. Michael Gove, the Community Secretary, is making a speech this morning where he's saying these marches, particularly in London, they're becoming a vehicle for hatred, and the organisers have to do more to stop the anti-Semitism, the cries for intifada. What's your view?
Well, I think we have to be very, very careful that we don't paint every single protester in that vein. And certainly most people are peace-loving and exercising their right to protest as we have in this country. Separately, we have a challenge in a very serious situation. And I was watching some of the videos from the protests that took place over the weekend of people that are not following the rules. We've got people that have face coverings when they're not supposed to have face coverings. And I saw footage from the weekend of people calling for intifada in this country, which is obviously very, very serious and needs to be addressed. Do
you, as a Jewish person, would you feel safe walking in central London in the area of the marches? You saw what happened to Gideon Falter a few weeks ago, part of the the campaign against anti-Semitism. He was threatened with arrest. You look very Jewish, sir.
Yeah, and I saw that video. I mean, I choose not to travel into those areas on the weekend.
Because of that?
Well, because I'm recognisable and identifiable as a member of the Jewish community. That's not the case for everyone, but that's the choice that I make.
That's terrible.
Can you believe when you stop and think about what that means as a British citizen in 2024, how do you square that with any sort of clamp down on those sorts of protests whilst also maintaining our right to protest?
Well, I think it answers the question that you asked at the start, and that's about making sure that everything can and should be done to hold people to account that do break the rules. And the fact that we continue to see on a weekly basis footage, we see both video and photographs of people that are holding placards that do break the rules, have very clearly anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish hatred written on them. The fact that we're seeing people that are chanting things, again, that break the rules, that's where we need to see the action taken. So our streets are safe for people that wish to walk amongst them.
Nigel, it is a shameful state of affairs, isn't it, that Jewish people will feel unwilling, like Luciana, who's very high profile, to go into our great capital city because of what they may experience. Of course it is.
I mean, obviously Luciana is recognisable in a way that other people may not be, and this is where the police must take action. I mean, certainly, if Gove is turning around and saying that the organisers must try and police their own demonstration properly, that's right too. There should be no anti-Semitism on these marches. There should be no hate speech. The chanting we talked about before. It depends what chants are actually being made, but really, it comes down to it's down to the police to make sure these demonstrations don't break the law. They are arresting people. Several hundred people have already been arrested on these demonstrations. That is right. But if that people are still getting through, you're going to need more police out there to make more arrests.
Yeah. I mean, Michael Gove is going to be talking this morning. He's going to say that the organisers of these marches could do everything in their power to stop them. And they don't. To stop that, he's talking about promoting hate. The marches have been overwhelmingly peaceful, of course, but somebody was arrested at the weekend for carrying a coffin with offensive language on it. How do you see this panning out, Luciana? If you can get out your crystal ball. Because whilst this is raging in the Middle East, we are going to see this in this country every single weekend. That could be years.
And we've seen it at different moments in our history, and we certainly saw it, between under the last government as well, and then it was the next thing. So I think in the here and now, the most important thing is about ensuring that we do have laws in this country and that they are used to hold people to account when they break them. And that's certainly, I think, the gap at the moment. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know what will happen into the future, but certainly now, at this moment, just in the last few days, we have seen that footage of what's happened on our streets, and that's why more action needs to be taken. And we do have laws. We do have rules which mean that people cannot or should be doing this, and therefore people should be held to account.
Yeah. We're just going to get a clip because this is Michael Gove, the Community Secretary, speaking now. We might just catch a bit of what he's saying.
Since then, the shadow has only spread, the hate grown. we've seen an explosion in anti-Semitism. The charity charged with recording anti-Semitic incidents, the Community Security Trust, recorded 4,103 incidents in 2023, as we've heard. That was an increase of 147% on the previous year, which was itself a record high. Of those figures, 2,699 incidents occurred after October the 7th. That is, more anti-Semitic incidents occurred between October the 7th and December the 31st, 2023, than in any previous 12-month period. And every day brings fresh examples. The chaplain driven off campus at Leeds University because he was Jewish. The visitor to a mosque promoting interfaith dialogue told he was not welcome because he was Jewish. The family who found their baby's passport defaced because they were Jewish. The stand-up comic who was told by a BBC comedy star that she would be killed and her family would be grieving for her in the cemetery because she was Jewish. The renovator of a dilapidated building threatened with a machete and told he should leave the, quotes, Jew building he was working in because he was Jewish. The reporter told not to cover an event because her eyes looked Jewish. And inseparable from these incidents are the increasingly strident, visible, and lurid demonstrations of anti-Semitism on our streets during protest marches. Swastikas, Hamas banners, depictions of Jews as exploiters, devils, child killers. It's incessant. We saw it again only this weekend. The imagery of Der Stürmer paraded past the gates of Downing Street. Now, of course, I know that many of those on these marches are compassionate people, driven by a desire for peace and an end to suffering. But they're side by side with those who are promoting hate. The organisers of these marches could do everything in their power to stop that. But many, the majority, don't. And we know now that it is genuinely dangerous for people to be openly, clearly, proudly Jewish near these marches. At a time when we're all encouraged to be our whole authentic selves, to celebrate our identity, to be out and proud, there is only one group told that they, and they alone, can only be tolerated on terms set by others, Jews. The organisers of the marches say that there are Jewish people on their demonstrations, but they are only safe if they deny what is dear to so many Jewish people, the safety of people in Israel. If they are to be accepted on these marches, then they must knuckle under, accept the calls to globalize the Intifada or to end the Zionist entity. They have to obey the rules laid down by others, those march organisers, who reserve the right to tell Jews both where they should live in the world and how they should live on our streets. It is a classic anti-Semitic trope to set the terms on which Jews will be accepted. Say,
Michael Gove, the Community Secretary. Luciana, there's him speaking. How do you react to what he's saying?
Well, I mean, he's setting out the real-life experience of too many Jewish people across this country, where we have seen this explosion, this massive increase in anti-Jewish attacks, anti-Jewish rhetoric. Some of it's online, some of it's in person. And we're seeing this replicated not just in our country, but in other Western countries at this time as well. And some of the troll comments, we didn't hear them at that moment, is that Michael Gove in this speech is going to say that it's anti-Jewish hatred is the canary in the coal mine, because what starts with anti-Semitism doesn't end with anti-Semitism, and we have a responsibility to all of our society and all of our country to stamp it out, because it doesn't just stop and start with anti-Jewish hatred.
Is it the worst you've ever known it?
Yes,
Luciana? Really?
Absolutely, yeah. Certainly in my experience,
yeah.
In my 43 years, but yeah.
Do you have, just before we let you go for break, I mean, do you have confidence that these organisers are going to heed what he's saying? Because I saw it on Saturday, I saw no attempt to crack down on these terrible people with their placards from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free, an anti-Semitic trigger. I heard people saying hateful things about Jewish people. It was horrible.
So in this speech, we know that Michael Gove is talking about that element as well as many other things. Let's not just say it's just about those demonstrations. And as I said at the start, people have the right to demonstrate, but it's when they cross the line that people need to be held to account. And absolutely, much more needs to be done to tackle those people that emit anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish hatred. But it doesn't just stop and start with those demonstrations either, because many of the examples I've heard from people in the Jewish community across the United Kingdom have experienced it in their workplaces, in their places of education, online. And so we need to be looking at this in the round, not just in that specific area.
OK. Right, thank you both. I'm afraid it was cut short because we listened to Michael Gove, but you will be back with us in about an hour or so.